I'm Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a podcast akin to the great salons of times past. Pour yourself a martini, grab a spot on your favorite sofa, and listen to the great artists, writers, politicians, and celebrities of our day discuss and debate the current political and economic scene, art and music, film, literature, or maybe talk about the newest trend in fashion, design, and haute cuisine. Whether it's the current political cocktail or the latest must-read award-winning book, we tackle all topics and like to stir and sometimes shake things up. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, we begin with Podcast America, our weekly politics segment in which veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper and I slice and dice the current political landscape as we get to November 6th and the midterm elections. Also joining me this week in the second half hour is a force to be reckoned with, Radha Agrawal, the author of an important new book, Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. Stay tuned and enjoy the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Let's get to it. Journalist and veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper is known for his in-depth reporting and analysis from Washington, D.C. Mr. Cooper has worked for some of America's most prestigious magazines, including Time, Newsweek, The New Republic, National Journal, and U.S. News and World Report. He now serves as a contributing editor to Washingtonian magazine. For the record, Cooper also earned national attention during the CIA leak case when he was held in contempt of court and threatened with imprisonment for his refusal to name his sources and to testify before the grand jury regarding the Valerie Plame CIA leak investigation, a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. He has appeared on 60 Minutes, Meet the Press, Hardball, The O'Reilly Factor, and This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He's covered Donald Trump extensively, his hard-hitting and insightful profiles of the Donald, always well worth the read. Let's talk. Hi, Matt. Another week.
Hi. Yes, Halli. It keeps getting more fun.
More drama in American politics. One thing good to say about Donald Trump, things are never boring with when he's around.
No.
Right? On the other hand, well, you know.
I know. I mean, it's, a week ago is ancient history.
It's a day is history, right? So today, Bob Woodward's book is Fear Drops, and it appears that Trump's gathering his posse and deputizing each to come to his rescue. Today, it's former Trump chief economic advisor Gary Cohn and Rob Porter. I'm sure you saw that. But the funny part about it is they're not really saying anything in their denial, which aren't really denials. Right?
Right.
Game?
No, yeah. I mean, let's just take a back step. I've covered a couple of White Houses, and, Woodward's been doing these books for years. And most White Houses, whether it was Reagan or Clinton or the Bushes, they had a way of handling his books that was pretty similar, which was, they usually didn't question the fact that somebody told these things to Woodward. They would never accuse Woodward of confecting stories out of thin air. They would certainly acknowledge that he had heard these things. And from there, they might say either A, that person got it wrong, who told you that, or B, you got it right, but you took it out of context. So, for instance, I was covering the Clinton White House in the early 90s when Bob Woodward's book, The Agenda, came out. And in it, there's an anecdote about Clinton going nuts. He goes crazy wild because his staffers have kept the mayor of Chicago waiting for him. And it's portrayed kind of in the book and in some spin at the time of Clinton being a little unsteady. And, they kind of spun it and they said, well, that is what happened, but, it's the kind of thing you want a president to get mad about. So in general, most White Houses had a set plan for how to deal with Woodward. It was one of those things that was just always on your calendar. Oh, we got a Woodward book. What are we going to do? Well, we should give him a few hours, give him some time with the president. Let's make these people available, and we'll just see what we can do when it comes out. You know, they all just knew how to deal with it, whether it was D.D. Myers or, you know, other people in the Bush White House or whatever. They knew how to deal with it. Now, the Trump thing, of course, is completely different, right? I mean, now they're just going to call Woodward a liar, call him a pawn of the Democrats, try to get everyone to denounce him like it's Trotsky, you know. And I think it's only served to inflate the interest in the book, which was already considerable. So, you know, it's another way in which Trump is different than the others.
You know, there are two things that brings up to me. One is, first of all, he printed 1 million copies before the book was even out. Thank you, Donald Trump. So what's the point of Trump doing that? I mean, could he be so stupid? But the other part is Gary Cohn. Rob Porter, you know, we know he's a little bit off the wall, but Gary Cohn, what in the world does it serve them to stand? I mean, Gary's out. So what? Some of this just on the Republican side, or the people who've worked in that White House, continuing to support him in some odd way, if you will. It makes you wonder what he's got on everybody. Before he starts, he must have his own dossiers on everybody so that he can hold them, you know, against the wall. So they'll do what he has to do. That's all that I can figure. Some of this just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, people, even if they don't like Trump, they don't want to be seen as disloyal. I mean, it's not a good look for them.
Well, in whatever they plan to them, right?
And whatever they plan to do elsewhere in their life. And so I can understand. I mean, this you know, people tell Woodward's things privately, and then publicly they say it's not true. That's happened before. What's different this time is the choreographed denunciations of Woodward, which have all the spontaneity of a North Korean rally, you know, as everyone applauds dear leader.
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, so you know. Right. Anyway, but look, the other big thing here is that this just echoes what we've heard elsewhere in Michael Wolff's books and others, that from people who are in the administration, not from Democrats. These are the people he hired who are saying like he's either unfit or pretty close to it.
I think that there's no denying that. No way at all.
Yeah.
And you know what? Polls are starting to show that maybe people are starting to get it. Independent support took a cliff dive. The approval dropped from 47 to 31 for independents. His overall approving rating is below 40. I mean, this isn't one poll. This is a stream of polls now. 60% think Trump's a liar. So here's my thing on that, though, Matt. An independent voter's view of Trump may play a key role, of course, in the coming midterm elections with key races in the House, Senate, and for governorships in dead heats. I'm wondering whether maybe we got some of this wrong. And here's the point where I wanted to go with you. You know, we all were the independents now. I'm not talking about the cultists because they're not going anywhere. They're just there. But the independents, did they vote for Donald Trump? Or was this truly a vote against Hillary Clinton, period? Because the swing says to me, I couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump's an equal arsehole. The economy, the issues, they don't seem to be a part of the mix. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think he had all kinds of motivations, but I think we know from polling and reporting and such that, you know, we had a lot of people who were just kind of mad and they wanted to kind of blow up the system. And they thought Trump was the bigger hand grenade. There were a lot of people who were just completely turned off by Hillary, and they voted for Trump for that reason, not because they especially liked him. You know, there were other motivations then, but in a way we're in a whole new world now, right? I mean, now we know what he is, and it's going to be interesting to see, you know,
what happens
if he can hold a coalition together in 2 years, and more importantly, what's going to happen in 2 months with the Republicans who are now cleaved to him.
I think we knew who he was then, and they decided it didn't matter. But I think, I do a lot of gauging on Twitter.
Yeah.
When the wackos start coming out at you in full force, those are the days that you can tell that they're going, we might have picked the wrong horse.
Right.
And they are out today, darling. I mean, I've been getting slammed. I don't know about you, but whoa, baby.
Yeah.
It's been one hit after the other. I want to go to next. There now seems to be a narrow path for Dems to maybe take over the Senate as well as the House.
Well, possible. I think it's still. I think it's still a little tough. I think these are tough states they've got to hold and tough states they got to gain seats in. I think their best chance for a pickup is probably Nevada, maybe Arizona after that. But as you know, a little tough in Florida for the Dems to hold on.
This is going to be interesting. We'll talk about
tough
Florida
in Missouri, very tough in Missouri. I think to keep
hard.
it.
Yeah.
Indiana's tough. North Dakota's tough. So they're going to have to really fight. But I think it's clear that they're not facing a wide scale loss of red state Dems. I mean, Michigan, Ohio, Montana, all look quite strong. You never know. Funny things can pop at the last minute, like New Jersey with Menendez. That's what that would be my candidate for a surprise.
Yeah, and they're pumping money in there, I understand.
Yeah, you never know. But look, Dems have a lot of good House candidates. I think they will take the House. They're pretty close. They're within historical norms anyway to do that. And the Senate, they're close, right? They just got to get 2 more.
It always worries me with this that, you don't know what forces are really at work here. I always argue that the national polls in the Trump Hillary thing were actually quite right. It was the state by state and district by district polls that were throwing everybody off, which people don't get. They all say, "Oh, the polls were wrong." They weren't. Some were, some weren't. But the national poll was pretty right on, and nobody wanted to admit it, or they weren't going to admit it. There you go. So again, we get into this thing with, we don't know. We don't really know with what we're seeing now, what's real, what's not real. Like, look at this Beto O'Rourke. I love this Beto O'Rourke. I know I'm going to keep talking about him, guys, till you can't stand it anymore. But I think this guy is got a chance to be something new and big in the Democratic Party. You want to say something there? Because poor old Teddy.
Well, I think if he wins, there will be an immediate, sort of movement for him to be to run for president in 2 years. I think, the sort of after Obama running for president after just 4 years in the Senate, I don't think there are any shibboleths about that anymore. So I think he will have kind of, supranational stardom if he wins.
Are the Dems smart enough to put the right amount of money in that district to pull it off?
In Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to, well, he has raised a ton of money.
That's
and I think
what he's done, yeah.
I think there's a lot of independent money to be had, but I think the tough thing he's got there is, of course, not only the conservative, topography of Texas, but Republicans control all the institutions, all the statewide offices. They dominate the legislatures. They're huge at the counties. I mean, they're the party in power, and they just, that can help you grind out that last, 1/3% that can make the difference.
The other thing that you have to look at in Texas is here's where the change is coming. Tell me if you think I'm right. I mean, the change is that all of the major cities are now Democratic cities. I mean, you think of Austin, you think of Houston. Yeah. I mean, he could win it on those numbers alone if they get the vote out there. Then there's that Hispanic vote thing too.
Yeah, but you got to win. There's a lot of small towns, and there's a lot of
it's
a lot of small
still
conservative
Texas.
Cities. Yeah, I mean it's tough. But look, he's obviously a very skilled candidate, and it's a formidable race. And Cruz has a lot of downsides as a candidate.
You think?
Yeah, I mean I don't.
Oh, my God.
But, Cruz's first ad was really good. It was all about Hurricane Harvey and had all these people hugging him and how he got the aid to people. And it was quite a good ad. And it was a reminder he's a good... He has weaknesses, but he's not without his strengths as a candidate either.
No, I don't know. He would be the last man on earth, by the way, I would ever vote for. Ever. And
I didn't think you were going to say vote, but yeah.
But I know a lot of his handlers, one in particular who I'm very close with, who I adore, think she's the smartest thing from 7-Up, since 7-Up.
Oh, yeah, I think I know who you mean.
And I don't get how they stick with him. I don't get it. But okay, whatever. Enough of him. We gave him too much airtime. Beto.
Okay.
I want to go back to Anonymous in the New York Times op-ed piece. That's got a large part to play, I think, in the falling poll numbers. Steve Bannon, Darth Vader, what an awful person. But what a smart man. I mean, now he's over in Europe trying to do the same thing over there that he did here. Mr. Populist. He's calling the op-ed evidence of a soft coup in the White House. But I want to make this point, Matt. And tell me if you think this is true. Nobody's saying it. If it's a coup, it's a Republican coup.
Oh, yeah.
But no one's talking about that.
No, it's a conservative coup. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
let's you say coup and everybody immediately goes, Dems, manipulation.
Oh, no. This is coming from within the palace. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a point that really needs to be said over and over and over again. But do you think it's a coup? What do you think it is?
Well, I think we know there are people, in there who think he's, just not up to the job, and they're going to do it, they're going to do whatever they can to keep the ship of state going. And, some will do it quietly. Some will find a way to complain like this person did. Some will just, wear out their welcome like McMaster and Cohen. And, that's how it's going to keep going.
Right. But is it because they think he's not capable of doing the job, or they see him, and there is a slight difference here, as having put himself in a position where he's vulnerable to their shenanigans?
Well, I guess both. I mean, I think they,
it's interesting, right?
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. As for Bannon, I don't know if his effort to sort of, coordinate the fascist movement in Europe and help all these ultra-right parties is going to help that much. I'm a little surprised the Europeans, I know why he wants the Europeans to sort of elevate his own status. I don't know why the Europeans would want him. I mean, he wasn't really the architect of Trump, and
but they think he is, and he's doing it for the money. He's doing it for the fame. He's doing it for the game.
Yeah.
This guy's. There's
I know why he's doing it, but if I was like an aspiring right-wing politician in Austria, I don't know what I'd get out of it.
Oh, I think that's because you're not of the mindset of the right-wing politician.
Unless he's just convinced them that he's got the secret sauce.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm sure he said, and I can get you into that White House, too. Don't... Well,
that's true.
There is that, too. Something interesting happened last week with you, Mr. Matt.
With me?
Yeah, with you. You're on Twitter, and you said something that needed to be said that nobody has said.
What did I say? And now I can't even remember it.
Oh, my God. You and former McCain campaign operative Steve Schmidt?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah. I had a little kerfuffle. Well,
a little kerfuffle? Don't talk yet. I'm going to speak. I was so proud of you. Not that my proud has anything to mean anything. But you said what I've been thinking. But, of course, you always do that. Here's what you wrote. Here's what you tweeted. You tweeted, I admire Steve Schmidt, but it's rich to hear him beg an insider register to come forward when he didn't spill the beans about Sarah Palin's unfitness until after the election. Could you have been any more right? No.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he and I had a little back and forth. Very amiable.
Yes.
Amiable.
He's a gentleman.
He's a gentleman. I do like him. I do respect him. I covered him back in the 04 race and a little bit in 08. Look, he was in a very difficult position in 2008 when he was one of the people who helped get Palin on the ticket, and then realized pretty quickly that she was just really out of her depth. Was not aware that there had been a World War I, things like that. And, he and much of the campaign agonized about what to do with her, that she was both ignorant and, venal. And, they didn't go public. They didn't really have any means by which to push her off the ticket. And so he was in a difficult predicament for which I don't, I have sympathy. But on the other hand, he was quite glib in saying that, some of these critics in the Trump White House have to go public and resign. And that just led me to think, well, why are you so certain about that? You didn't do that,
Well, let me take it out one step further. Sarah Palin got on the ticket. And they picked her because she was beautiful and she was sexy and, she had the title governor. She was from, Alaska, so that made her, interesting. They did what the Republican Party later did by picking Donald Trump. And it said,
well, no question.
All right, well, so let's talk about that, because it was the prelude, to where we are today. So I adore Steve Schmidt, and I think he's smart as a whip. And I love Nicole, and she was part of all of that. But I think if we're going to fix this, and this doesn't become the future, we have to figure out how we got here from the past. And I think that was it. I think that was one of the worst moments in political history in the in the last century or so. Talk to me. I got something.
Well,
there?
yeah. I mean, there are definitely ways in which she presaged Trump, and one of the ironies of the Trump era is like he couldn't stand her, right? She endorsed him, but then he couldn't.
He dropped her in a hot.
He dropped her because she was just, she made him wait on stage, and she was just, there couldn't be two of them in the same room. So, I mean, I think it did start the Trump era in a lot of ways. On the other hand, she was a pretty good. I mean, they had some good reasons to pick her.
They were going to lose, and it was the last.
They were going to lose, and she was a pretty good governor, and she actually had done pretty well, and she'd taken on the sort of some established interest there in the Murkowski family and the oil companies and stuff, and so she had a pretty good story to tell. It's just that the most minimal vetting would have quickly uncovered that she was just,
not ready for prime time.
The mayor of Wasilla was not ready for this.
Right.
And, but they didn't. And, the rest is history.
And the rest is history. But I think it's a point that needs to be made.
Absolutely.
Yeah, lipstick on a pig does not belong in the White House.
Right.
Brett Kavanaugh might have committed perjury during his hearings. And we're in trouble when the Republicans are saying he might have, quote-unquote, misled in his testimony. The Dems say, no, he lied. And I believe the Dems have filed a case. In fact, I just read it right before we went on air that that case is going forward. It's my understanding it's going to be heard in Merrick Garland's court.
Yeah. Well, they actually, it's funny. I'm not name dropping, but I did go to a party where both of them were about 6-7 months ago, and then they're very collegial, the two of them. I mean, they do work together on the same court. It's kind of interesting. Well, look, I mean, I think the Democrats landed some blows, and I think the more this is about ethics instead of conservatism, they've got a better chance of possibly derailing it. But I don't think we're there. I don't think Murkowski and Collins will move, and so I think it's just kind of playing out the inevitable at this point.
Which takes me to where I wanted to go next, which was to Susan Collins, who I'm ready to de-egg. Y'all de-ball, I de-egg. This woman is brilliant at pandering. I've never seen anything. I mean, she is the best. She's like, Betty Boop. She's got that sweet, kind of wide-eyed, soft-spoken thing that she plays, and then there she is, and oh my God, and she does it all the time. I'm going to think about it. She goes to the mics and does, but she, 9 times out of 10 votes, Republican anyway. But I think women are not going to like this at all with her. I think she's walking a really dangerous line here.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, she's enjoyed very, very good press over the year. I think the press naturally gravitates to centrists, and I think she's had a very good run. But I think she has sort of tripped over her feet on this one. She said Roe v. Wade was a kind of litmus test for her,
right.
For her, and she's just kind of twisting his words to make them sound like he's going to affirm that ruling, and I think everyone else realizes that's not the case. So we'll see if she pays a price in Maine, if she's scared enough to consider voting against him. It's going to be interesting. It's possible, she votes for him, Murkowski votes against him. They may not vote as a pair.
But I think she's overplayed her hand this time. I think she was there. She's been there for a while, but I think that women are going to come down on her hard. I want to say something. I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but I do want to say this. Be careful what you wish for. If I were the Republicans, right, and they get Roe v. Wade overturned.
Oh, yes, I agree with you on this. Yeah.
You know what?
Go ahead.
They're done. They got nothing else. It's the last gas. What else do they have? They've been fueled. They've been running this baby for so long.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I think it would be very, ultimately in the long run, would be very bad politically for.
They got nothing else. I mean, all they got left is guns, and the public is
just they're much better off at what's been happening, which is the chipping away.
Exactly, absolutely. So I think that's a point that needs to be made. Ben Sasse, what do you think about this dude?
Well, I think as many others have pointed out, he complains a lot about Trump. He has not used his leverage in the Senate to do anything. I mean, all he'd have to do, if he's concerned about the rule of law, all he'd have to do is hold up some bills and say, I'm not going to let him through until we protect Mueller's investigation. Or he just hasn't done anything other than just sort of,
grandstand.
Line up. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's just posturing. And, Flake, at the very least, is leaving. I mean, Sasse is just, I don't know. I don't really get it.
Well, he said the other day, every day I wake up and contemplate whether I should leave the Republican Party. And I'd like to talk to him and just say to him, okay, if you now say that and you don't, then you're just Trump. You're just a colluder. You're just you're just one of them. You got to, you got to get off the train. Otherwise, you're just Susan Collins with a what. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's distinguishing himself.
No, not at all. Cute as he is. Florida. Oh, Matthew.
Yeah.
I hope this thing turns into crazy so that you have to come down.
Okay, so this crazy governor's race.
Oh, my God. Can I just tell you? This is pretty wild stuff. This is America.
You thought Gillum could win last time we talked, and things have gotten better for him. Right?
You got it, and I still think he can win.
The polls are good.
The polls are great. But talk to me about DeSantis. This is more in your thing. He had to resign. Now, I know you know these kinds of ins and outs that I don't quite get as well as you do because you've been doing this so long. His resigning, Matt, tells you that campaign's not doing well, right?
Yeah, it's a gambit. Bob Dole quit the Senate when he was running for president. People do this occasionally. It's sort of a posturing, like, I'm all in, I'm cutting the life raft, and I'm going to do this, and I'm committed. I'm not a creature of Congress anymore. I mean, it doesn't really, I don't think it's going to move a single vote, but it does show that he feels like he's got to do something. He does not want to be tied with Gillum. He wants to break this open, and clearly he's not off to a good start.
No, and I have two things that I have to tell you. One is Rick Scott is getting a divorce from Trump. He doesn't want Trump even 2 inches near him right now, which tells you a lot. And on the other hand, Nelson is saying, I'm not taking on Gillum's whole left-wing thing.
Right.
This is the most interesting race. Everybody's doing a different dance.
Right. Well, I'm sure he doesn't want any of the Tallahassee corruption probe on him or the abolish ICE or some of the other things.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Now, whether they're going to both try to see if they can run the tables their way, and that's interesting. It's interesting whether that'll work.
Yeah, I will tell you this: the press teams down here seems to be turning on Rick Scott.
Well, if he's trying to distance himself from Trump after being one of the most Trumpy governors, they should turn on him.
Well, yeah. I mean, but they're really turning on him. And they're getting him for all the past misdeeds, and his money games and this, that, and the other thing. And nobody's being shy about saying that is the race to watch as far as I'm concerned. That is just, oh, my God.
No, it is.
Yeah.
And, normally, I mean, anyone elected in 2010 and is, still in office in 2018 has a pretty good story to tell because the country was such a,
different. Yeah.
Things were in a crapper back then, so he can say, look, now the budget's surplus and we did this, and they can take credit for the rising economy and unjustifiably, but they take credit for it. And so if you have that kind of wind at your back and you can't pull this off, well, that tells you something.
Absolutely. One weird story I'm just going to mention because I think it's kind of bizarre and might lead us into something in the future, and that's a story about Cuba and the mystery of the diplomats getting, their brains fried.
Yes.
And I did want to mention that because I think it's a story that has yet to be properly told. I mean, now we know that intelligence seems to be saying that Russia is behind the attacks, but then says, Matt, it won't do anything because it doesn't have enough ammunition to support the facts. That's weird stuff. Anything you have to say on that one? This is tied into Trump.
Oh, well, look, we know the Russians have, seem to be involved with, killing some of their own nationals in Britain. Recently.
There's something going on. That girl that they've got in custody, this is not a pretty story.
Yeah. There's no question the Castro government has not made the 2010 opening, 2012, whenever we opened to Cuba, 2013.
Yeah, something like that.
They've not made it, they've not helped matters.
No. But I don't think it's the guy. I think it's Russia. I don't think it has anything to do with Cuba. I think it's a Russia thing, and it happened in China too. Well, that's all we have to say on that. I just thought that's a story that's gonna grow. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to say we didn't get to?
It's going to be a long fall. It's just our best wishes for everyone in the Carolinas.
Yes.
As they hunker down this weekend.
Absolutely. Been there, been through one of those scary times.
Yeah, stay safe.
Matt and Halli will all wish you all the best. Darling, thank you.
Thank you, Halli.
See you next week. I've been speaking with journalist Matthew Cooper. You can read his insightful reporting at Washingtonian magazine and follow him on Twitter at Maddie's Scoop and on Facebook at Matthew Cooper. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guest today is veteran White House correspondent and contributing editor to Washingtonian magazine, Matthew Cooper, my co-host on Podcast America, and Radha Agrawal, the author of Belong. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find me on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on whichever is your favorite app. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Here's something to twirl around your brain. It's the great paradox of the digital age. The internet connects us to countless numbers of people, and yet we feel more isolated than ever. I imagine anyone listening to this podcast can relate. Most of us travelers on that technical superhighway, a place where we're all driving down a dark lane in our own cars, associating ourselves with images rather than reality. Is that connection? Radha Agrawal is a community force to be reckoned with, the co-founder, CEO, and chief community architect of Daybreaker, the early morning dance and wellness movement that currently holds events in 25 cities and over a dozen college campuses around the world with a community of almost 500,000 people. The successful entrepreneur, the co-founder of Thinks, globetrotting speaker, DJ, inventor, and investor. In her new book, Belong, she answers the questions for us that she answered for herself at the age of 30. How the heck do I find my people? And how do I create large and meaningful communities in the real world? The world is a lonely place, but it doesn't have to be. Let's talk with Radha Agrawal. All right. Get me right on the name first. I love your name. Radha?
Yep, it's Radha, like Prada, without the P. And Radha Agrawal.
Agrawal.
Yeah, Agrawal, like agriculture and wall.
Oh, does it have a meaning, Radha?
Yeah, Radha is the goddess of love. And my dad's from India, and Radha is Krishna's lover, and she represents the goddess of love. Yeah. It was a great pickup line when I was in
I was going to say, give me that name. I want that name. Halli is kind of weird too, but I'm not sure what that means. Well, nice to meet you. How nice to have you here.
Nice to meet you too.
Listen, I mentioned in the intro that at age of 30 you came to terms with your reality, which seems to have been at the time that you felt separate from the world. I don't think you're alone, and that's why I have you here today on the show, because I think this is just a very important new book that's out. Belong, find your people, create community, and live a more connected life. I love the word connected. Talk to me about that time in your life.
Yeah, when I turned 30 years old, I looked myself in the mirror and I realized, wow, I don't belong. I spent my 20s in sports bars drinking beer I didn't want to drink and watching sports I didn't want to watch, and radiating a version of myself that attracted all the wrong people. So, I was pretending to be someone that I was not, thinking that that's what the world wanted of me, and that created this really deep loneliness. Even amongst the friend group, I didn't feel connected to them meaningfully. So when I turned 30 years old, I really looked myself in the mirror and I really became intentional about my community, which changed my life.
That's such an interesting passage, and I think we all go through it. I think we go through it more than once in life, by the way.
Oh,
but,
yeah,
right?
7 or 8 times in our lives.
At least. But that word connection, I love that word connection. And I think there are a lot of us who are in a room full of people who feel alone. And
oh my gosh,
right? And I'm going to take it out into society in a minute, but just I want a little bit more of your background, because I think you and your sister are phenomenal young women, young from where I'm standing, and I don't often have young women on my show, but I wanted you on this show because I love what you're doing. You started off in Canada and came to the States. Tell everybody what you guys have achieved thus far. And you're what now, in your early 40s?
No, I'm in my late 30s.
Late 30s. Okay, that's even worse or better depending on where you're coming from. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think for me and my sister, both of us, our challenge has always been, how do we solve what sucks in our own world? And I think answering those questions and creating solutions, instead of complaining about and being a backseat driver, just like, oh, wow, going out to dance isn't a fun experience anymore. People are always drunk or on drugs. So I'm going to start a dance experience called Daybreaker, where we serve green juice instead of alcohol, where the bouncers are replaced by hugging committees, where we add performance and elements that, beyond just a DJ pushing buttons, where we do it in the morning at 6 a.m. at sunrise when our energy is the most full, and trying out new experiments. And my sister and I have always been interested in experiments. And so this experiment really blew up. Like we launched in New York City in 2013, and that totally took off instantly. People just wanted a place to connect and socialize. So Daybreaker really became this sort of home for 500,000 people now around the world to wake up and dance before going to work. And so that was, that's one of the projects that sort of solved for how do I dance, connect myself in a safe environment where I don't feel unsafe, where there's, going to be all kinds of drunk people around me, so I can fully self-express without having to edit my dance moves, Mm-hmm. So that was, one problem that we wanted to solve. Another one was my sister and I being entrepreneurs, running around the city. We always had accidents. Like, when you're a woman running around, sometimes you forget to put your pads or tampons on when it's your time of the month. So we just have these embarrassing accidents all the time, and we just said there's got to be a better way to support women during the time of the month, but also in our research realizing that 100 million girls in Africa and India and across the world in developing countries miss up to 1 week of school every single month because of their periods. And so we invented a pair of underwear that is leak-proof, stain-resistant, that is beautiful, breathable, that makes you feel sexy during your time of the month. And that blew up and took off as well, because it turns out that 1 in 2 humans bleed. And all of us find that the solution right now is very archaic. The last invention was tampons and pads invented by men in the 60s. So, it's our time to really share what we know best about our own bodies. And so, and then, of course, in between, I've had restaurants, and I started a media company for children to teach kids about nutrition education in a playful way. So all of our projects that I've really focused on have been sort of around things that we think could be improved in the world that doesn't currently exist for us.
So what you're talking about is a woman who, from her creative center, she's able to take whatever is in that creative center and turn it into reality, which a lot of people, I think, need teaching on how to do. And in a way, that's what this book is doing, by the way. So is that a special tool you're born with, taught with, or you believe that all women can do that? And part of connectedness, by the way, I think gives you the backbone to take the idea and throw it out into the world.
That's exactly it. That's exactly why I wrote this book. That's exactly why I wrote this book, because if we have a community that supports us and gives us wings and gives us energy to fulfill our dreams and run after them, if we can find and are intentional about the people we surround ourselves with, then you will have the courage and the energy to go after your dreams. And that's exactly what happened to me. When I turned 30, I was building, sort of marginally successful businesses, but not really. I really wasn't happy. I was stressed all the time. I was focusing on work. I was heads down, thinking that was what I needed to do. I canceled on friends all the time. And then in my 30s, I really focused on, and this is the last, 8 years that I've been focusing on my personal community, and the 180-degree change life is experienced because of intentionality is why I wrote this book. We all have the toolbox. We just don't often know where to start. So I just wanted to outline them, lay them out in a very simple step-by-step guide. Here's exactly how to make friends. Here's exactly how these friends will give you wings to pursue your dreams. And here's exactly how, first, before you go out and make friends, to get to know yourself and what you want in life, because if we don't take that time to go inside of ourselves, we'll never be happy. And so the book is a journey, and I hold you by the hand, and I take you, sort of firmly, but with love, and I take you through a bunch of exercises that you can do. So by the time you close the book, the book is illustrated. There's 20 exercises in the book. It's not like a book that talks at you. I really wanted to write a book that was participatory, because community is built on participation. I couldn't write a book where I was just talking at you. So I really want you to write in the book and participate in exercises in the book. And the goal is by the time you close it, you have a blueprint for how to create your dream community, both for your personal life, or if you want to build a 500,000 community like Daybreaker, for your business or your community or your church or whatever it is, you have the tools to do that in the modern age.
And I want to go back a bit. I want to say I grew up in a time when there was no internet, when there was community, when there were neighbors, that when we went in and out of each other's homes on a regular basis, when there were parties. There weren't always drugs at parties in those days. That happened a little later. When families stayed, families stayed in the same town, and kids grew up with grandparents and parents, and there was community. I worry now.
Exactly.
I was just talking to somebody actually this morning about this, about how you go to restaurants today, and people may be sitting and look like they're having a great time, at a big table or what, but everybody's looking at their cell phone. There is no.
I know.
All right. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that is a hurdle. I don't know how. I think it's an addiction, number one, at this point.
Well, that's what it is. It's a complete addiction. It's a dopamine addiction that the developers and programmers and companies, corporations have figured out, and they're making billions of dollars on our attention. We call it the attention economy, right? The more attention we give to the devices, the more money these companies make, the less money. We don't make any money out of that. We just become depressed and sad and alone. So it's one of those things that we have to educate. It's like why organic food went from being like, wait, I opened a restaurant with my sister 12 years ago, and the word organic back then was like, that's gross. It sounds like dirt. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And now organic is what everyone talks about today after we educated everybody. So right now, the big key is educating people that phones are slot machines, that we are being trained to be addicted to our phones, and that everyone is addicted to their phones now. They're addicted to the likes, the ding. I call it the cycle of the ding addiction, right? That's in my book as well. And if we can just recognize that and then give ourselves boundaries around it. So I've turned off all notifications from my phone. I removed Facebook from my phone. I only look at Facebook on my computer now for 10 minutes a day. I have very specific boundaries around my phone use, and it's completely transformed my life as well in terms of my presence and connection with my friends, with my own personal happiness levels. But the more people are like, turn on your notifications, it's just like actually like luring you into a slot machine. So that's step one, is creating an awareness around the fact that it is addicting, very, very addicting, and two is creating boundaries around how to manage it. Because some social media can be useful. It's connecting with your friends who are far away. It's if you're part of Facebook groups or things like that. There's really wonderful elements in which you can stay connected in between events or in between gatherings. But for the most part, we are now lured deeper and deeper into our phones, which is very, very destructive for the fabric of society.
It's absolutely scary. There's a statistic in your book: 1 in 4 Americans say they have 0 friends to confide in, even though they're online all the time. But you don't make friends online. Yep. It's something different, and I don't even think there's a word for it yet. And what does that tell us about our society? I guess when you grow up looking at a computer, you don't know how to communicate. And I'm in the business of communication, and so are you. Let's talk about that, because is that the ill here? We don't know how to communicate, and that's what Belong is trying to teach people how to do, right? Communicate.
That's it. And that's it. And it's communicating offline, is having, again, the courage. The word courage is a word that I feel like is not often used enough, is having the courage to not just hide behind your screens, right? To be able to text somebody, hey, will you go on a date with me, or you want to hang out? Because the screens gives you a buffer around what if I'm rejected? And we've become such a sensitive people. Our skin is so thin, we can't handle the idea of our friend telling us something negative. We've been raised in a society where everyone gets a trophy, right? You can't say to someone, hey, listen, you didn't play, good and well enough today, so you're not getting a trophy. And it just creates this sort of, I can't say anything negative without it being an inflammatory experience and without someone getting hurt. So having the courage to have tough conversations, having the courage to pick up the phone and call somebody, having the courage to sit across someone at lunch and not look at your phone once, it requires courage and love and intention, and something that we need to cultivate more of. And starts with the individual, really.
Well, and there's something in there, because part of it is part of the suck in. It is, right? Don't you feel like you're sucked in all the time?
It's such a vortex, yeah.
Right, and that's it. That's a perfect word, because you'll see what I call it in a minute. But what I was going to say on that point is that you do get sucked in, and the problem is so many of our businesses rely on our being online, and there is that side to it. There is you can't get away always. Some addictions like alcohol, just stop drinking. You can't just stop the internet. That is problematic. I want to take it to this, though. We all have personal stories, and we're all hard at work writing our plots or subplots, creating our worlds, and that's a great thing. But maybe we're not so good anymore at creating our characters, building our personal characters and our relationship to other characters. And I think in there, I talked to you in the beginning about the fact that you guys are able to take your creative sides and put them out into the real world. And I think there's some of that in what in what I've just said. We can create our own plot. We can create.
That's it. Exactly. Exactly. Like, we are masters of our own fate, and that's the thing. I think people are so paralyzed. We are so paralyzed. I was so paralyzed in my 20s as to, having the courage to go out and make friends that really fed my soul. Because what if I was rejected? But then in my 30s, I realized, wait, what do I have to lose? I'm miserable anyway, And now the joy, the light, the connection, the energy that I feel just from having that mindset shift of, I don't know how to do this, to, okay, I'm going to try this courageously and vulnerably and put my neck out there and see what happens. The dividends, the payout is so much higher that you can imagine. And for me, I went from lonely and sad and frankly, like, not successful to finding my tribe of my dreams. They fill up my cup every day. I have best friends. I've built businesses that that are successful. I found a love of my life on the dance floor at Daybreaker. I'm pregnant right now, 6 months.
Oh, how wonderful! I didn't know that. That's terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
And yeah, and all of this happened in the last 6-7 years of just taking the time to cultivate my community again, which is why I wrote this book, because I think if everyone had the tools to do that, we would stitch the world back together. We would stitch ourselves back together.
Radha, let me ask you this.
We realize that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going to break in here, but let me ask you this. You are successful, and you're doing it without being online 24/7. So it is possible. Hello.
Oh, my gosh, it sure is.
Okay, and I think that's
sure
so tell us about that, because I think that's key.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. So one of the things that I realized also is that, I'm on Instagram. I'm sharing stories. I also enjoy sharing stories. I'm not trolling Instagram, though. I'm just sharing my stories on Instagram every once in a while to say, hey, here's what I'm up to, in hopes to inspire other people to, maybe get off their bed, get off their TV, watching Netflix, whatever, Netflixing and chilling, and get out there and create as well. And showing, one of the reasons why I love to share on social media is just to share, hey, it's not as hard. Like, if anybody can do it, you just have to turn your phone off, turn your social media off, get focused, and do it. And I think because we're so distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're so distracted. Like, do you know that it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get back to what your task was when you're distracted by your phone? Or it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get back into the conversation and feel in flow once you've been interrupted once on your phone. So it's like, imagine that happening 20 times a day. What are you actually getting done?
Well, no, I think that's true. I think that's true. And I think there's also the aspect of getting multitasking, and then nothing is really done well. And I think that's a part of, there's a part of that issue too. I compare all of this to going down a long, dark tunnel when I sign onto the internet, and I'm into this kind of weird place. And the thing about all of this is also that I wanted to bring up very quickly, because I have a few more questions and we're running out of time, and I don't want to do that, but we have to. Here's the deal. We're building mirrors rather than real worlds. We're reflecting back ourselves, and there's something very ill about that, because that teaches you something you don't want to be learning. You're not getting new info in, you're just getting the mirror back of yourself. It's out through the looking glass, and I think that's a very dangerous thing. I want to get to the political sense. I think there's a large part of the reason of all of this is because of the internet and our fractured nation and non-community. We've been living in the me generation for a long time, and I think we've moved off to a different place now. I think we live in the us versus them village, the village of the damned.
100%.
All right. So I'm wondering your thoughts just on that very quickly, because I think that's weird.
Yeah. No. I mean, first of all, we are living in a polarized world right now where we can't hear each other. And when you don't belong, when you're part of a marginalized community, when you feel like the world is against you, you don't have friends, you're going to band towards political groups or that actually give you a sense of community. I mean, several administrations have preyed on the lonelier communities to say, hey, I'm going to do the barbecues. We're going to have hats for everybody. We're going to have they created basically football teams, and I think if every party could learn how to create community meaningfully, we would have more sort of fair fights. But B, I think people would listen to each other more meaningfully too. I think right now, because the communities that are being built politically are. One of the reasons I wrote the book actually was after the elections, and I'm just gonna share that, because I just was like, I just was in such despair around the anger that was happening in this country, right. The deep anger and the lack of listening, that I just said, wow, here I am, I'm building community, we're 500,000 strong, but there's 7 billion people on this planet who are all angry with each other, and in this country, there's 300 million people who are polarized. If they could have the tools to listen to each other, to make friends, to realize, oh, wait, we all enjoy eating food together. We all enjoy our July 4th barbecue. We all enjoy listening to music and dancing, regardless of our political affiliation. Maybe there's some common ground here. So I just think that I just think that we're so focused right now on pointing out what's wrong that we have a hard time pointing out what's right. And again, that points to the me versus the we. And joy is a dance between the me and the we.
Well, that's it. I think you say and belong, and I love the title. Did I say that already? If I didn't, let me say it again. I love the title belong. Belong is a dance between polarities. When we dance between the we and the me, magic happens, is what you said. And I just think that is absolutely not only brilliant, it's key. It's key to everything. Listen, I think you've written a primer on what your title says. What I believe the title is wonderful, but it doesn't do justice to what's inside this book. It is a primer.
Thank you so much.
And I think you've offered each of us a way out of our self-imposed lonesomeness. Oh my God, can you believe that? I mean, we are all lonesome, and it's just crazy. There's no reason. But I also read here a map.
Can I share one quick story?
Please do.
Yeah, I'll share one. My mother, who's 70 years old, last week or 2 weeks ago, we had dinner, and she shared with me this story that I was moved to tears. She said that she moved to a retirement community a month ago in Baltimore, Maryland, and to be close to my sister and her grandchildren, but didn't know anybody. And my mom's Japanese, and she wanted to make Japanese friends. And so she wrote a handwritten letter that said, "Hi, my name is Mireille. I'm Japanese. I just moved to the neighborhood." She courageously did this at 70 years old, where you're often isolating yourself. And she said, "I'm looking for Japanese lady friends. If you're interested to connect with me, my number is this." And then she drives to the local, the closest Japanese restaurant in the neighborhood, and she gives it to the manager. And she says, "Excuse me, my name is Mireille, and I want to give you this letter to give to any Japanese lady that you see come to the restaurant, and offer this letter to them." And her phone started ringing off the hook.
Wow. I think first of all,
she has...
Yeah. Go ahead. No, finish.
So she had three phone calls. So she had 3 ladies in the last week call her, and these are all magical women, and they're all meeting up in the next few weeks. And I just was so inspired by her courage, her gumption, her offline, sort of driving to to do human to human, and going for it. And what's happening now? She's growing a community in Baltimore.
I think that is gorgeous. Tell her I'm dedicating the show to her. I think that's great, and the new baby. I want to get to the conclusion of our conversation, but I'm telling everybody, please pick this book up and share it with everybody, because it's so important. It is so important. If you read it, you're going to find a map on how to bring us back to one nation, indivisible. And my take is that we can only get there when we stop worshiping our new God, the internet, and I learned that from Radha, and we start building real communities in which we truly nurture not only ourselves, but one another. I'll give you the last minute, your final thoughts on all of this.
Well, first of all, it takes a village. The most generous act we can do as human beings is to create community. So for everyone listening out there, if you can pick one community to start, whether it could be 5 people around a tea that you like, around a book that you like, around sort of cooking, whatever it may be, really just have the courage to try and create community. I'm 6 months pregnant, and 6 weeks ago I had no idea. I was sort of in the depths of despair of how do I do this mom thing? And I started this WhatsApp group. So that's online actually, but we've met now twice. But I just invited 20 women, what I call the modern mamas, and modern women who are having babies, and I invited all the women I knew, and I just started this incredible dialogue on WhatsApp, and women were sharing their deepest, darkest secrets or fears or loneliness or moments of triumph and skill sharing. And I can't even tell you how much solace from that group. And we've since met twice at my sister's house, at my house, at a friend's rooftop. And it's just been such an incredible change in my life. It's 6 weeks ago, and so it's never too late. It's never too soon. Just pick something, pick a community, have the courage and the generous spirit to go out and do it. And if you do that, the world will stitch back together, I promise you.
Thanks, Radha. So great to talk with you.
So great to talk to you, too. Thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye. I've been speaking with Radha Agrawal. Her book is Belong. Find your people, create community, and live a more connected life. If you want to belong, read this book. If you want to be a change agent, read this book. For more information on the book and Radha Agrawal, visit her website at radhaagrawal.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show is a production of Resec, LLC. Be sure to tune in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show at hallicasserjayne.com or listen on your favorite app. New podcasts are posted Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern.